All right, saints, we're into this series on the book of Revelation, going chapter by chapter. We're going to be going chapter by chapter in this overview, seeing it from a bigger, a higher place. And as we saw in part 1, that you must enter this book through the door. That small gate, that small door which is Christ himself, and stay on that narrow way which is Christ himself. And then you can enter this book and see the wisdom, the glory, the power, the revelation of Yeshua the Messiah, the revelation of Jesus Christ, and that's what we want to see. So we saw those things in the first part. And before we go in and start the messages chapter by chapter through the book of Revelations with this view from a higher place, there's one other thing. We got to have this one last message before we start that. Concerning another thing. 3 things that you must understand. 3 things that the Holy Spirit revealed to me as you enter this book, and you must understand to understand this book. And the first is that as you enter that door and go on that narrow way, this is a revelation of Jesus Christ, a revelation of Yeshua, of Him Himself. And what is that? How can that be? Because in this book you're going to see as we go through it, this is a revelation of Him. And in that one revelation of Him, you'll see Him, His church, His Father, His kingdom, His bride, which becomes His wife, the new heaven and the new earth, the temple of the living God, the new Jerusalem, the tree of life, and the river of life, and on and on and on. As you go through this book, you see these glorious things, and they're all a revelation of Him. And the second thing that you must understand, if you're going to understand this book, is that every time John says after these things, and some translations in some places will say after this. So every time that John says after these things or after this, John is completely changing subjects. You must understand that. This is not a continuous story. So many teach that and say that. Those on the broad road to destruction that see nothing but the misery, the death, the destruction, the slaughter. That's what they try to tell you. That this is a continuous story and you have to follow it through. That's not true at all, saints. Listen to me. You got to understand this is the second thing. That everything and every time John says after these things, or you read it in some translations and places as after this, John is completely changing subjects. So you will be going through a subject with John, and he'll be in that one subject until he says after these things again. And once he says after this or after these things, you are leaving that subject. You're going on to a completely different subject. And he will carry that subject from beginning to the end. And then when he says again, then after these things, or after this, then he's changing subjects again. This book is not a continuous story. You can understand this book if you think it's a continuous story or it's jumping around. John is picking up a subject. He's carrying that subject through to the end. Then he'll say, after these things, and he'll pick up another subject, and he'll carry that subject to the end. You must understand that, saints. So number 1 of the 3 things you must understand, that this book is a revelation of Christ Himself. The second thing you must understand is this is not a continuous story. It picks up a subject, carries that subject through to the end, and then John will say after these things, pick up another subject. The third thing that you must understand and you must see in this book is that every time you see an angel that an angel appears and an angel has a message. That message that angel brings is from God. God is bringing you a message through that angel. The more powerful that angel is, the more powerful and glorious that angel is, the more important the message is. The more authority that angel has, the more power and authority that message is. So, as you're in these subjects, when you're in a subject that John has you in between the after these things, and you will see angels, those angels will be bringing a message from God to that subject that John has you in. And the more powerful that angel is, or the more authority that angel has, the more important and the more powerful that message is. So you must understand those three things. That this is a revelation of Yeshua the Messiah, a revelation of Jesus Christ himself. And in that revelation you see him, his church, his Father, his kingdom, his people, his bride, the new Jerusalem, the new heaven, the new earth, the river of living water. You see so many things in that one revelation of him. The second thing is that this is not a continuous story. It picks up a subject and it carries that subject through to the end. When that subject is done, John will say after these things, and then you'll go into a whole new subject. And every time you see an angel, that message that angel brings will be to the subject that John has you in. Those are the three things you must see. Once you come to that door, once you enter that narrow gate, that small door, which is Christ himself, and go on that narrow way, which is Christ himself, you'll have the light and the life and the glory of this book. God didn't save the last book of the Bible just to show him destroying man and earth. It's one last glorious revelation of him. And yes, you're going to see the downfall of the kingdom of the beast, because that is going to bring the kingdom of Christ, and we're going to come and rule and reign with him. So yeah, that must happen. But you're going to be shocked and surprised at how that happens and when that happens in this book. So each time we come to, and after these things, I'll show you what subject we're in. You'll see what subject we're in, and you'll see how it drastically changes after John says after these things. And every time an angel comes, we'll see the message that angel brings from God to that particular subject. So starting in the next message, we're going to start with Revelation chapter 1 and take one chapter at a time, not getting into the detail, not digging down into it, but this time seeing it from a higher place, going up above and seeing the glory of the coming of the Lord and his kingdom.